Hey, welcome back to Overhead Athletics. Today what we're going to show you guys is 3 of our favorite plyometric upper body exercises for our throwing athletes. We use these all the time in rehabilitation, but we also use them in the off season to train the throwing arm. A lot of times when you get into a return to throw program, you haven't exposed your elbow and your shoulder to any of the loads that approximate throwing. What I mean by that is we do a lot of slow movements on set and rep schemes that don't really replicate high impulse movement that occurs during throwing. High impulse ballistic movement. So we can start with something really easy, like a ball tap. I've got Jack here. He's a stud catcher. And we're gonna work on a lot of tricep and elbow stuff for Jack, work on stabilizing up this elbow. So we're gonna show those plyometric exercises here. Ball wall taps. I see these done all the time when the arm is too far back behind the body. You see the elbows out in front. That limits some of the valgus stressing at the elbow. He's doing it on the squat rack here. You can easily do it on the wall. Some athletes are going to have a hard time getting this going. I want you to go faster, Jack, faster. Faster, faster, faster. Good. Take a break. Now, once you're done with that, once you can replicate that, I want you to go up and down on here. So now he's going to go up and down. It's more challenging. Gets him to work through elbow flexion, extension, come a bit lower for me, bit lower, bit faster too. The faster you go, the better. If he fails, fatigues, can't keep up the same speed, that's the end of the set. Great exercise, ball wall taps we call those. Then he can do the exact same thing, starting in that same flex position, working his way out and across to work out into that release point and into some of the loading phases. Get going fast there. Working out, walking the feet. It's much more challenging, much more difficult, but an exercise that develops some strength of the rotator cuff, activation of the rotator cuff, but also forearm musculature. Once he's done there, I'd like to go to one of our favorite tricep plyometrics. I see these once again done back here all the time for people with elbow and shoulder injuries. It makes no clinical sense, and I've seen it done by some of the foremost experts on baseball rehabilitation way back here. Well, first of all, professional pitchers are at about 0 degrees of horizontal abduction, adduction to about 10 degrees in front of the frontal plane, maybe 15 degrees in front of the frontal plane. So with that in mind, what we're doing is we're training in a position that the shoulder never really is, and the elbow is never really in this position. In the thrower, it shouldn't be, and that's why people get pain in the front of the shoulder and the inside of the elbow, because they're putting them in bad, lengthened, insufficient positions. We like the elbow to be slightly out in front of the chest. If we're going to work on shoulder internal rotation, if we're going to work on the tricep, we work with the elbow way out in front of the chest, which is what Jack's going to show us here. Watch where the athlete's chest is facing. You need to be straightforward if you're doing this. Let your elbow bend. Let your elbow bend. Throw it harder. Let your elbow bend. Let the ball come in. Good. There you go. Now you got it, Jack. That a boy. That a boy. Very nice. Get your elbow up. Good. So now that's a tricep variation. Now if he slides forward, works through the shoulder, this is going to be more of a shoulder internal rotation variation. You see, once again, his elbow is slightly out in front of his chest, which is what we want. Maybe not something I do right away for our elbow patients. Let it fall back. Let it fall back. Good. Keep your elbow up. And the elbow cannot drop below the height of the shoulder, which is what we know in throwing causes internal impingement, especially as the arm comes back. So if you're doing it, and I saw it once again done incorrectly at one of the foremost authority or so to speak places, it's supposed to be a baseball rehabilitation place, and they're letting the elbow drop as they do this. That's terribly incorrect, and that's going to further facilitate damage to internally impinged structures or structures that are excessively lengthened at the front of the shoulder. From there, one of our favorite tricep catch exercises. Tricep's a big thing we're working on here with Jack. It's a tricep plyometric. It's going to load the inside of the elbow if he moves too far that way. So the pole right here is right in front of the shoulder here. He's going to start with a flexed elbow position, and he's going to let his weight fall forward. Don't let it collapse. Come back out. Start here, catch it right there. Don't let it continue to bend. Good. Stop and push off. Good. Stop and push off. You need to reset in between each repetition. Elbow up. If you let your elbow get too far down, it's going to load the elbow unnecessarily. Good. So this is going to train wrist flexion, impulse training. It's going to train there. That's going to keep your elbow. There you go. So if you let your arm drift this way, that's a big load on the elbow. keep the elbow out in front. You're loading it into flexion, not out here. This way, Jack. Good, right there. Bam, catch, push. Good. So it's hitting that front of the forearm, which is gonna protect and deflect some of that load. Don't let yourself deviate out here. Do it. Do it. Catch, bam. See, I hit my hand. Don't let yourself hit my hand. The harder he can catch isometrically, the better. You're just hitting my hand. Don't let it happen. Don't let it happen. Bam, good, and off. Okay, as he gets stronger, he can move back further this way and try to catch from further out. If he's very weak, he can regress to here and eccentrically load and then push. See that one, Jack? Start here, eccentrically load to 90 and push. He gets a plyometric push off, he gets load acceptance through the arm. Start here, catch and let it come into about here. And off, boom. So a little eccentric to concentric action. 3 of our favorite plyometrics for our throwing athletes for the upper extremity. A few different variations depending on what you want to work on. If you're just looking for general preparedness, getting ready for your season, work on a bit of all of them. Throw them in prior to your return to throw program or when you start to do it. We stay away from these in season. You're already getting enough ballistic plyometric training just by throwing.